Today I'm going to go over a few videos. These are videos that people have been posting online. They are supposed paranormal encounter videos. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and this is something I really enjoy doing. And now I'm going to sort of take you through the process with me. So let's look at some videos. Okay, so this first video, I just went ahead and took the volume out. She cusses in it, and then the background music, I don't know if it's copyright, so I got rid of it. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this one because she's chilling at home with her dogs, and then she sort of pans left, and she sees this shadow in the doorway. And the crazy part about it is that the dog actually sees the shadow with her. And the dog reacts to the movement of the shadow, just as obviously the woman does. And I wanted to look at this video because there are aspects of the shadow creature, or the shadow blob, which to me give me some kind of, it just makes me feel like this might be a legitimate video. CGI is crazy nowadays. It might not be. But for this one right here, I think we have something legitimate. So let's go ahead and look at it real quick and see what we see. Okay, so let's take a look at this video. Like I had said just a moment ago, we're not going to do any volume on it because of the background music and the fact that she cusses. I just don't want to keep repeating that. So like I was saying, she's in this room resting, and she sort of pans over. And again, the thing that gives me some legitimacy here is the way the dog reacts with her. So let's look at that real quick. You'll see that she'll pan over and the dog sees it. There it is in the door. The dog sees it and it disappears. And that's where she reacts. And so again, typically if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, it's a setup, I'm thinking you won't see the animals react so much. And it looks like here, the key thing for me is that the dog sort of reacts before her. Like, she sees it, he sees it, and he approaches it. And then you're going to see her react, but at this time the dog had already reacted. And then it's gone. So she gets shooken up and we move on. So what I want to start looking at here, since I feel like there is some level of legitimacy between her reaction and the dog's reaction to the thing, is now I want to start looking at the body of the form. So let's take a second and then we'll bring up sort of a closer image. But really quick, before we run and do that, I want you guys to see this video. So this one's been slowed down by about 40%. So let's take a look real quick. And you can sort of see the way it moves there. It sort of just darts off to the right. And you're going to see it move about here, and it's just going to go that way. Now, I just really think this is an interesting bit of footage because I've heard of shadow figures being reported. Sometimes people describe them with a bit more form. In this situation, once we zoom in on it, you'll see that it sort of doesn't have much of a form. So let's look. Okay, so in this next part, I've went ahead and I've zoomed in, I've cropped it. So all we're seeing right now is really the door where the figure is at. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and then we'll do this one first. And then after this, we'll do some updates and some refinement to the video. So let's take a look. And there it goes. So let's stop that and play that again. And when you really look at it for a second, it doesn't have a concrete figure. Like there's solidity to it, but the figure itself actually moves more like a blob. And so when I'm looking at this, it reminds me of something I saw at the Southgate House over in Kentucky. I saw something very similar to this, but it was a mist form that went through the door and it vanished. Now the way this thing moves, boom, just like that, that's the same way the mist moved. And the thing about the mist is that it had a darkness to it that was like a void. And people mention that quite often in paranormal occurrences when they deal with these shadow figures or these forms, is that the opacity of the shadow is something darker than dark, darker than night, and it stands out. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to lighten this up and try and put some effects in, and then we'll see, can we get a better image. Okay, so I've went in and I've made a few adjustments to the color. I've increased the exposure, slightly increased the brightness. I'm a little undecided on that. There you go. I'll reduce the brightness by 31. I've decreased the contrast. This is it with more contrast. This is it with less contrast. Let's see. Saturation's about the same. Shadows I've actually decreased a little bit, or at least I brought them up to 8, because what I want to do is lighten the picture, but at the same time find a way to increase the darkness. Now we can put more sharpness in this if we want. So that's me taking the sharpness up to 183. Right now I'll leave it at 0. So let's go ahead and take another look at this. And so there it goes. So let's focus on this here. There, it moves. And something we want to pay attention to, at least I'm paying attention to, is it looks like the form is pretty much this right here. When I see it move, I'm not seeing much change here. The form could go down here and more. So let's take a look again and see what we're getting and really pay attention to that movement. If you guys hear noises in the background, you know, I'm sorry. It's been raining for about 2 days straight here in Cincinnati. And I'm downstairs in my little studio dungeon area. So, all right, let's see. There goes the movement right there. You see that? So you see it yank hard left back into the room. That to me is in line with many of the things I've seen in terms of paranormal activity when dealing with shadow figures or manifestations of its sort. What it is, I don't know. The one thing and the one minor conclusion I can come to is that it might be affected by being seen. It notices that the people see it and it reacts to it. It goes back in the room. A really interesting question to ask is if you could get a hold of the owner of this video and ask her, does she have any activity in the home? Something that is interesting is it almost looks like it returns to a point. Like it gets recalled. Like it gets sucked back in. You know, I have opinions about these things. So what I want to do now at this point is I want to get a better image of the actual figure. And typically what I do to get a better image of the figure is I begin to apply filters. And I look for a filter that I think brings out the figure and any movement associated with it the best. So let's go ahead and let's find a good filter for this, and then we'll bring it back up. Okay, so what I've done at this point is I went ahead and slowed the video down by 70%. I want to get a really good look at the shadow figure, and I've also went in and added a filter that sort of makes the figure pop a little. So let's go ahead and take a look. So there we go. We got a really good view at 70% speed reduction. The interesting part here, I've said it before, is sort of the figure actually seems like it gets recalled or sucked back into something. But you can actually see on the video sort of a separation of form in the figure. You can see like it has tracers or shadow left behind. We know no normal shadows operate like this. Shadows sort of move as a group, even when slowed down. So what we're seeing is this thing sort of dissipate back. And I find that fairly interesting. Now something we can do is start to identify if there is any form to it. That's something I need to be rather careful of, because in the past I've tried to review these videos, and what I found was a pretty good level of form in some of them, and upon further research I found out they were actually frauds. There was nothing to the video. The video was made. It was like a publicity stunt. A lot of people do these things for subscribers and views because they make quite a bit of money off of it, so they do it. But looking at this, I'm wondering, because it almost looks like an arm there. Or maybe not. Like, is this a face? That's creepy, if that is a face. Or not even a face, like, are we seeing something looking out here? And then you've got something coming down here? Because when it moves, this whole bulk sort of goes. So let's see if we see any movement here. Almost like a head leading the body. And that's when she reacts. Now, something we can take a look at, I'm pretty sure you've seen it all by now, is let's look at when the form moves, what's left of the door. So there, right there is our normal, or the norm. This is the frame of the door. So when you compare the frame of the door to the figure being present, let's go further back. There it is. And then you look at the frame of the door. Gone. There. And you start to get an idea what the body of the figure was. Oop. Okay, I'll look at one more filter. If I can't find a filter, then we'll sort of close this one out. Well, I was going to switch the filter, and what I found was that I could just alter the filter a little bit more. And after going through some of the other filters, I don't think they work as well as this one. So let's go ahead and look at it again, and let's see what else we can find. So again, here's your figure. And remember, we're working at about 30% of the original speed. And you can start to see again a little bit more of it. So with this new filter, what I'm seeing is you see some of it disappear from up here. This whole area right here disappears, but what you're going to see next is that as this portion retracts into the room, you see something here move. So you're going to see this move, but as this moves, you see a portion here move with it. So it actually comes out a little and in. And my first thought with that was what we're seeing is a rotation. So imagine if this is the hip line, you're almost seeing a rotation here to move back in. So like this. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it's unusual. I would say that something like this, if it is legitimate, and I think it does have a lot of qualities to be a legitimate piece of paranormal evidence in a capture. This isn't something you see every day, and quite honestly, I always say it to people that these kinds of incidents are outliers, very, very far outliers. So if this individual did legitimately catch a piece of paranormal evidence in the form of a manifestation, this is a very excellent capture. What this is, I'm not sure. It's amazing. So what I really want to do while we're sitting here talking is see, can I take some of this with the filter and actually get us a better picture. So let's make it a little brighter. Not too bright. Well, you can see how as I make this brighter, some of the dark forms in it are accentuated. So I don't want to make it too bright, but let's run it real quick here from this portion, or with these specks, so to speak. And it's just a very interesting capture. I hope it is legitimate because it's fascinating. If it's not legitimate, then this has been fun. And this is something I really enjoy doing. Alright, let's look at this with a higher contrast. What I need is a person that's fluent and experienced in CGI, because there's a lot of just telltale markers with CGI that you'd be able to see if this thing is legit or not. But the fluidity of the movement is something I've seen. So it's just a very interesting clip. So here we go. Here goes a pretty hard lighting adjustment, like extreme. And let's see what this does to the picture. Because you can see we get more tones brought out. You see these very dark darks here in the picture also. So that's amazing. What you're going to see is that this whole section right here, it's almost like a tail. This is very Ghostbuster-esque. The whole thing just goes in, like it swoops in. Look at that. It's almost like a snake. So that's the gist of his manifestation that was captured. I left you a video here showing how I've done the editing to where it was towards the end. I can't say much more than I think that she did really get a shadow figure, and it's interesting to see how they sort of operate. Some are said to be pretty full in form and mimic a human. You've heard the top hat one before. The Abe Lincoln sort of vibe. And then some are just have no form to them. The one I saw was a mist. And what she captured here almost looks like it manifested into something more like a human form, but then when it was time to go, it sort of just fizzled out like the snake we saw in the end. And I really couldn't say more unless I spoke directly to the woman or the individual who captured this, but it does seem like they got a legitimate piece of paranormal evidence. If you got this far, thanks for watching. I got some more lined up. Sorry I didn't get more in this video. Thank you.